Hey, everybody. We are here once again for Corporate Life is Hell. We broadcast on Blab the first and third Wednesday of every month at 12 noon Eastern Time. And today I think we have a great topic. It was a topic put on the agenda by Carl Deershaw. And so I'm joined by Carl here. I'm going to turn it over to you, Carl, to actually lead the conversation today.
Well, thanks, and appreciate it. By the way, what's the weather like down there in Texas?
It's sunny and cold.
Yeah, about the same. So I'm in Colorado, and it's supposed to get warmed up to the 50s this week. We'll see. But, we have a little bit of snow on the ground. That's nice.
Well, you guys had a huge storm last week.
Down in South Colorado. It actually stopped pretty much right in the middle of the state and didn't get up here very much at all. So we got maybe a couple inches. So
hey, how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, fantastic. Relatively relaxed. It was nice. The way you know that you have a good vacation is the day you get back. If you're going, now what was I doing again? And when that happens, then you know you got some relaxation in.
Yeah.
So,
well, I got sick. You probably can't tell too badly, but I'm feeling crummy right now, and I have something in my lungs that every now and then will make me cough uncontrollably.
Oh, great.
So I'm apologizing in advance.
Be ready with the mute button, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the topic we wanted to talk about today was people who are escaping the corporate employment gig and going into self-employment. This is something that I've been working a lot with people. It's a very common scenario. And as a matter of fact, one that I have followed myself, as have you, Mike, and a lot of other people. And so I thought that I'd talk about that because when you're trapped in your corporate environment and you're thinking corporate life is hell, there's always this feeling that, all right, maybe wouldn't life be much better if I was my own boss? So the true answer is, yes, you can be your own boss. Unfortunately, your boss doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. He doesn't listen. And, all the employees you have are idiots as well. And so I say that humorously, but, there's a certain amount of feeling that goes along with that. So I thought that I'd talk about this transition a little bit and what is it for real. So there's two aspects of this. One is the external. So I wanted to talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the internal stuff because it's actually more fascinating and interesting. But the external stuff. So when you leave your corporate gig, either voluntarily or not, and you decide to head out off on your own, there's a number of things that you need to do. So if you're going the start a business route, first realize that that's only one of the possibilities. You could buy somebody else's company or, get a franchise. You could decide that I want to spend more time volunteering or be with my family and stuff like that a little bit more. So, there's a lot of different routes that you can take. But many people that I run into are wanting to start a business because they want to do what they want to do, and they still want to make a little bit of money at it, even if you're 60 years old or something like that. You're feeling, well, if I live until I'm 90 or 100, I can't necessarily get nothing for the rest of my life. I'm worried about that. So, bring in some money, but maybe not the same as when I was in my prime earning years and getting a regular paycheck from somebody else. So, see this all the time. So, on the external journey, how do you do this? Well, the basic tool that people will talk to you about is you got to create a business plan. Right, and it sounds scary because there's all kinds of business plans, 50-page business plans and all this kind of junk. But in fact, a business plan doesn't have to be that scary and weird. The basic business is what business are you in, which means what do you sell and who's going to buy it, because that's really the test of, are you adding value through this business? If you're not selling anything, or if nobody's buying it, then you've got an expensive hobby, so let's call it that. Let's not call it a business.
Yeah.
So you're going to have your business plan that says, here's the products or services that I sell, here's who I sell it to, here's why they are going to buy it from me, here's how I'm going to market it. If there's an ongoing relationship that I need to support my products when they break, or have a regular resell. I sold you a hamburger today, but you're going to come back tomorrow and buy another hamburger.
Oh, you know me.
I wasn't talking about you personally.
Oh, but that would be me, though.
Yeah. So that's sort of the basics of that. And I've seen great business plans which are written down in 3 pages that just sort of capture the essence of all that. And it can be just fine. Let's not overblow these kinds of things.
My first business plan was 50 pages.
So how did that work for you, Mike?
Terribly. That business is history now. It lasted less than a year, and I sold it at the end of the year. So whether I don't know that it was because of the long business plan, but maybe in hindsight I was using. It turned out that it wasn't the business I wanted to run. It was when I first left corporate, and I knew I was going to be a coach, but it was down the road a little bit. I wanted to get my certifications, and I went into business with my parents right away. They owned a travel agency. And so I had this grand idea about growing their travel agency and becoming this, large host agency with home-based travel agents all over the country. And so my business plan was a little bit of that's the way I lived out the business in the business plan. As I thought about it, and as I was contemplating leaving my corporate job, I spent all my time writing this thing, and I think you almost mistake writing the business plan for actually running the business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people fall into that trap. But, let's talk about the thing of business failure, because a lot of people get really scared by that. And that's one of the things that can cause you to go and overplan sometimes, or to be too cautious. Okay. So the honest truth is that most startup businesses fail. Okay. And there's statistics, and they show this quite regularly. In any case, no matter whether you had a great idea or a bad idea or whatever, most fail. The thing you need to realize is that's not necessarily a problem, because what I see actually happening is people go and they do something for a year, and they decide that it's not the right thing, and they shut that down and start something else. And I've done that myself. I've started, if you count it that way, I've started 3 businesses now, but I shut them down intentionally, not because the market was saying you're an idiot and it ran me into the ground and stuff like that. So if you're going to have the flexibility to start up something and then change it or pivot or shut it down and replace with something else or whatever, if you're going to have flexibility to do that, which you should, then you don't want to invest everything in the first time. Go ahead, throw all your passions and energies into it, really get involved, try really, really hard to make it work, okay? But also have a little bit of protection so that you don't ruin your family life.
Yeah.
Because the last thing that you or I would want, Mike, is to have to tuck our tail between our legs and say, well, I'm a failure. I'm going to go and get my job working at a fast food restaurant because nobody else will hire me for anything else. I don't want to do that with my life, and I don't think you do either. And so part of this, it's kind of a schizophrenia that happens, is you want to be fully invested emotionally and physically, but not necessarily monetarily. You want to have a cushion. And
maybe not attached. Is that partly what you're saying too?
Yeah,
attached?
I think attached is a really good term for it, but it's one of the struggles that people have. And so then you get into the writing the 50-page business plan to say, well, it's all about getting it perfect.
Yeah,
well, I'm sorry. Even with a 50-page plan, it's not perfect, is it?
No. It's trying to anticipate everything that's going to happen, even before it's happened, which is ridiculous. I was thinking about the quote as you were talking that was fail often and fail frequently. Fail often and fail quickly.
Yeah, and though some of us are very good at that.
Yeah.
So,
well,
hey, Billy Bob.
Hey, guys.
Great to see you on the line here.
Hey, this is real timely for me since I spent 2.5 hours on the phone this morning with Affordable Care Act
oh God,
questions and issues.
Yeah, boy, I'm glad I'm not in the healthcare industry, because that kind of stuff would just drive me nuts.
I'm a 2-year veteran, Billy Bob, second year in the exchange. So if you need any advice or experience, I've been through it.
Yeah, this is going to be, I guess, year 2.5. So it's like, so we're just learning to deal with it. This morning somebody said something about, boy, that's one.
Uh-oh.
We lost you. Yeah, his connection seemed like it was slightly glitchy.
Yeah. Oh well, you're welcome back anytime, Bob.
So we were talking about business plans, failing often and failing quickly.
Yeah, so I don't want to delve too deeply in this, because I work with people in my coaching capacity to work with people through their business plans and to develop something and refine it, test it, and all that kind of stuff. But that really isn't the primary topic for today, because remember, we're talking about the Corporate Life is Hell gang, if everybody wants to be included in this audience. And the idea is, okay, if I were to leave corporate, then what do I need to know and do to make that successful, and how risky is it? So it turns out that the deciding factors really are the internal ones, okay? And so I really wanted to talk about the internal journey that you go through when making that leap.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I was on a multi-year plan to say, I'm putting together my career plan B. If I lose my job, or if I decide to take early retirement or whatever, I'm going to go off and do this coaching thing for real, make a living off of it, and all that kind of stuff. So I've been working on that for 5 years or something like that. But I was scared to leave my corporate job. Then my employer helped me with that decision.
They're so good at that.
And said, we don't want to pay you anymore. And so I decided, well, if they're not going to pay me, the free coffee isn't that good. And so I think I'm just going to, I'm not going to work there anymore. So that was the path that I took. Isn't that a nice way of saying it? So now the question is around the internal journey that you go through. So I had multiple phases here, and I know that many people do when they go through this kind of thing. So there's a lot of factors of it. One is to develop a set of self-confidence. When you're working for somebody else, your value is tied up in this whole paycheck and job assignments and your role and stuff like that. And people get really tied into that. And that's why losing your job can be so devastating, is because you've lost that sense of identity. I'm delivering value to somebody, right?
Yeah, and even at a more extreme level, identity. People identify with their jobs, and it defines who they are. And then when they lose that, it's like losing your sense of self.
Right. Yeah. So part of this journey is to develop a set of self-confidence about who I am. And I have skills in my hands, that I have knowledge in my head, and I've got my ambitions and passions and all that kind of stuff. And it's good because I believe it's good. I don't really need too much validation from other people. Now, I'm going to get to the place where other people are paying me for that, but I have some work to do. But right out of the gate, I have to become confident to say, here's who I am, and I have value in the world. I have not lost my mission just because I lost my job, or I chose to leave my job. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing here is the self-confidence. All right.
That's a huge one. We should talk about it for a few minutes before you move on.
Yeah.
It's a huge one. I know it personally, but when I talk to people who have gone out on their own recently, or even who are thinking about it, for some people, there's a whole lot of self-doubt about, well, who's actually going to pay me just for what's in my head? Or, just, is it really that valuable? And so then they hold back in doing some of the things they need to do to actually be successful. Maybe they don't put themselves out there as strongly or as clearly, or they hold back a little bit, and they don't want to take the risk of, putting out a training course or an offering or trying to sell something to a customer because they're hesitant, and then they fail to actually get any traction.
But the world is so much more accepting of people going out and being their own solopreneur business these days, or launching something new creative ideas. I mean, good Lord, we have all kinds of possibilities. And, one of the things that you can do is to just get out there and network with people, and you start trying stuff. You meet some people at a networking meeting and you say, well, I'm going to be a coach. I'm thinking about it. All right.
No. I am a coach.
Well, right. And so you're thinking, oh, no, wait a minute. That didn't feel good to me. Yeah. It's like, that was so hesitant. That was terrible. And the person responded, and they were like, well, good luck with that, I guess. Totally expecting that I'm going to become bored with that next week and go off and do something else. And so on next time I meet somebody, I try it on and say, I'm starting a coaching business. And I think to myself, wow, that actually felt a lot better, but still, I don't have business cards. I don't have a business name. I really don't know what kind of business this is that I'm doing. I don't know if it's coaching or consulting or what it might be. I've got lots of ideas rattling around my head. Tell you what, the next person I'm going to talk to, I'm going to say, I'm a career coach. And somebody goes, I have no idea what that is. It's like, oh crap, I don't either.
No, I better figure it out. That's the invitation to start winging it, because you do know what it is. You maybe just haven't put the crisp words on it yet. So that's an invitation to just start expounding on it.
Yeah, but the point I was making here is how important it is to go out and actually say these things to real live people. Get that feedback and listen to yourself and say, all right, what am I learning out of this experience? And, you may talk to 50 people who are totally mystified by what you're talking about. That's fine. So go talk to 50 people, because that'll help you get to number 51 with a message that really resonates. Yeah,
I don't think you can overstate that. The need to get out and talk to people and talk about what you do and find out what other people do, and not be tied to, is this going to lead to business directly? You can't think that way. I can think about a lot of clients that I've gotten that the seed was planted in a networking event or in a coffee or something that happened where, 2 years ago or a year ago. So you really got to go out without the intention of I'm going selling, but just go out and connect with people.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in my business for 5 years now, and I'm still reaping the rewards of what I was doing when I set up the business originally.
It doesn't take that long.
All those connections and the groups I got involved with.
Speaking of connecting and networking, I'm dying to know more about Billy Bob. And after you were on last time, Billy Bob, I checked out your website, and because you're local too. So I would love to hear more about, your journey. Maybe you could introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, so I basically spent most of my career in enterprise software sales. So I kind of went back and forth between the huge companies like SAP and Oracle, and then in between I would go to startups. So I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley as well.
You know, I worked for Sun for 11 years.
Yeah, so a lot of the Sun guys, you know, I was at Oracle when Oracle acquired Sun, so I got to know a lot of those folks, really awesome people. I'm sure we know some of the same ones. And so for me, I think the part that was intimidating was it's an entirely different decision for people that are later in their career, right? So there's an opportunity cost that is real that weighs into the conversation. And so many of the people I know want to start their own business, and that opportunity cost of, okay, I can't even go 2-3 months without this income because I've maxed out my lifestyle. So that keeps them from making that first jump.
Yeah, you know, and that's a real thing that I run into a great many people. But, you know, the plus side, you may have some retirement savings saved up, and that gives you some flexibility. You always have skills and knowledge that you can leverage. I mean, you've been working for all these years for other people and presumably doing valuable work and learning as you went along. Okay, now, and the other thing is that many times you're also to the stage where your kids are up and out of the house, and so the degree to which your family is dependent upon a regular income has shifted a little bit. And so oftentimes that gives you flexibility. And don't underrate the networks that you've built up over the course of your career. Even if you've worked with a single company, chances are you've worked with hundreds or thousands of people over the years. And that's an incredibly valuable asset. It
really is. And I think my experience is that's what everyone undervalues, is they think of their skill set as limited to this like very narrow job description that maybe is created by their current employer. And they don't think about the things you're talking about. So in my case, we have software in my company, but it wasn't my software experience that's relevant. It's the fact that I know how large enterprises buy. And that's an extremely valuable, if you're going to try to sell large companies, then understanding how large company procurement works is an extremely valuable skill, right?
Right, and it doesn't so much matter what you're trying to sell.
Right.
The fact that you understand that sales cycle and appreciate the timing and the different roles and all that kind of stuff really makes a powerful difference. And, you know, you could be outselling something much, much different, but if it's in that same environment, and who knows, you might be selling to some of the same people who have purchased from you before.
Exactly. And I think it's a very different scale up if your each yes is $100,000 or $200,000 versus, you know, if you're selling to individuals or small business where each yes is $3,000, $5,000, that takes a lot of yeses to get to a point where you can kind of sustain your lifestyle. And so I think people that are further in their career have more of the network where they can engage directly with senior leaders, and they can go to that larger company and have that $100,000 ask. And that, by the way, you know, if you're tied to the right project and you have the right skill set, that might be the same job you're doing today and getting paid $100,000 a year. And then you find out somebody else will pay $100,000 for a 2 or 3 month project for you to do the exact same thing. And I think what surprised me is how many people will find that the company, I'm just picking easy numbers, the company that's paying them $100,000 salary today will pay them $170,000, $180,000 to come back and do the same job as a contractor. And now I can, in addition to doing it for the company that I'm working for or used to be working for, I now have this freedom where I can go cookie cutter that and sell the exact same thing. So I think in general, people that haven't been entrepreneurs before they think the bar is much higher, and they think it needs to be much more complex and much more difficult. And it's almost like their knowledge is a curse, right? It's like, no, it doesn't need to be nearly as difficult as you're making it.
Right. And, even the most difficult cases like selling to the government where, supposedly they require to be registered in a certain size and all that kind of stuff, which people find very scary. I know many people that do government consulting work, just little one-off things. It's a one-person business. Doesn't have to be really huge or anything. And the other thing that is interesting about this too is I often find that people then start steering their business in a slightly different direction to say, well, I enjoy being able to get that easy work, but I have been doing that for 10 years. I'm a little bit tired of it. I'm more interested in this other thing over here. Let me go off and explore that, and develop some new skills. And you don't have anybody telling you that you can't. You get to tell yourself whether you should or shouldn't or can or can't. So that kind of brings up the second big thing that I see people struggling over is moving away from other people making decisions for you to making your own decisions. And it's not just about confidence, even though that's a big part of it, but it's also about trusting that even though I don't have all the information, it's good enough that I can move forward, so I'm going to go. I'm going to pick a direction. I'm going to be responsible for my decision, so if it doesn't work, well, I'm going to change it. If it does work, great, I'll celebrate. But people in corporate environment, of course, for all these years, your boss has been making the decisions for you. She gives you a job assignment and assesses how good you did it and rewards you at the end of the day and stuff like that. And now I'm having to decide, what is it that I do, for whom, what is my marketing approach, how much do I pay myself? And everybody gives me advice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it makes the decision for me, because I'm getting all kinds of random advice. So at the end of the day, I have to say,
all kinds of random advice, often conflicting. Everybody thinks they know what's best for your business, and everybody's got these new ideas and new things that you could run with, and a lot of them are good, but you can't do them all. So that's one of the types of decision making is discriminating. Choosing. All 8 of these might be good.
Saying no is more important skill than saying yes, actually.
Yeah.
And that's really tough because, especially when you're starting off, you have this mindset of, anywhere that there's $1 laying around, I have to go chase it. And when you're out there figuring out what the market needs, that's not necessarily a bad thing to do. But when you're trying to refine it and say, this is what I'm about, this is the product or the service that I provide, things like that, you have to start saying no to a lot of other opportunities so that you can develop a powerful message and actually succeed at it. Because nobody is going to succeed by having their fingers in 15 pies. You got to pick one thing or maybe 2 if they're associated and go for that. And that's where you're going to spend your passion and time and money. And because it's going to take a long time. So, that's one of the other things is patience. Corporate environments tend to be very short-term focused. I don't know what you think about this, but despite the fact that they seem big and ponderous and slow to make a decision and everything like that, the fact is that there's, the loyalty is really, what did you do for me this month? And so the idea of sticking around and sticking to something for 5 or 10 years doesn't seem like too many people are expecting that anymore in a corporate environment.
If they are, they shouldn't be. That's a mistake if they are, right?
Yeah, well, and the thing that's interesting about this is that what you learn has big longevity. It's valuable for the rest of your life. Okay. But what you do is often very transient, especially if you're like in a technology field like the three of us have been. Oh my God, how fast is that changing? It's ridiculous. The stuff that I was doing at the beginning of my career is so far out of memory that people don't even have the language for it anymore.
Yeah, Carl, you touched on something a minute ago that was a big part of my decision that I think is super timely this time of year. Is there are so many people in the corporate world that right now are totally stressed out about what's the new year reorg going to do to me? If they're in sales, it's, this pipeline that I've built over the past 2 years, is it about to get passed to someone else? And the comment you just made about the constant short-term focus and what have you done for me lately, I felt like I was never, even if I was building up a professional reputation, I felt like I wasn't really building up any asset that could actually build from 1 year to the next, where I could say, okay, the work that I'm doing in 2015 is going to actually be more valuable in 2016 and more valuable in 2017. It felt like in the corporate world, I could crush it in 2015, I could crush it in 2016, and then a new CEO could come in or a new acquisition happens, and it all goes to zero, and I'm starting literally over every January is what it felt like.
Well, the biggest asset you have is between your ears, which is what you've learned from all these jobs over the years. The second most important asset is all the relationships that you have. Okay. And then all the rest of it, it has value, maybe, like your actual sales techniques. Okay. So you can apply that in many situations. That's highly valuable. But really, it's mostly about what is it that nobody can take away from you that's just in your head. This is what I know how to do. And I do it really well because I've had lots of practice at it. And by the way, it's been so valuable that other people have paid me significant money for doing it. So, I should have confidence in that, right?
No doubt.
Billy Bob, how long have you been at it? How long have you been out on your own?
Since July of last year, so about 18 months this go round. So I built a software company when I was younger, and then just had the entrepreneurial journey before I got into enterprise software. It was home run, get crushed, single, get crushed. I was just exhausted from that roller coaster. And so the idea of somebody paying me salary and commission was like amazing. And the first year I had an expense account where I put on like 45 pounds because I just couldn't believe somebody was picking up the tab for that. And so 16 years and 4 kids and a wife later, that helped stabilize my decision making a lot of that, during that time. And so it prevented me from being able to jump out and do anything crazy for the last 15, 16 years. But last summer, we were on vacation, and my wife woke up and I informed her when she came down to breakfast that I had resigned that morning. So her mouth, was shocked. It was shock and awe. She was completely freaked out, but it's worked out.
Wow.
Excellent.
Had you been thinking about it for a while?
Yeah, I had. I'd kind of set a timeline that it wouldn't be past, next February. And then I said, well, maybe December. And then I said, well, Halloween. And then I finally said, okay, it's July 14th. It's just going to be today. Let's just do it today.
Yeah. Sometimes you just make the decision and say, this is the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of that is that confidence to say, okay, I have enough. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. I'm going to take the leap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, for me, and this is what I think is useful for everybody that's considering this. For me, it's been 18 consecutive months of simplifying the idea. And so 18 months ago, what I thought this thing was going to be was really complex and going to take a long time to build and be really expensive and raise a bunch of money. In 18 months in a row, we just simplified it and gone, okay, the simpler we get, and the more we scope this down and make it very, very specific and make our story more specific, the more we grow. And so I expect, next month will be the 19th month in a row where we just try to get simpler and simpler and simpler. And that's the biggest thing. I feel like when I meet with people who are considering making this leap, they're overthinking it. They're thinking it's something that's super complex and daunting. And I just try to encourage them that, this thing, it can be a whole lot simpler, and just try to think about what's that one little thing that you can do that would add value to one company. And then if you can do it, if you can get one company to pay you $100,000 to do that, and then you get a second one. If you get two companies to pay you $100,000 to do that activity, that means you can get 100 to pay you the $100,000 to do that same activity. So I think it can be a lot simpler than people think it can be.
Yeah, I always like to think of that metaphor of taking a step out into the unknown. You do want to know where you're going, and see the top of the mountain, have a vision for where you're going, but you don't have to know all the steps between here and there. And in fact, that's what holds people back, is they need certainty, or they need clarity about how to get from here to there. And a lot of the time that clarity, it's impossible to get, because it's going to depend on what steps you take. It's a dynamic question. So you have to actually take the step out into nothing, trusting that each step, something will materialize underneath, and if it doesn't, you'll fall into something else. But it's that movement forward that's gonna create the outcomes you want.
Right. Yeah. And that I see that all the time, and people really do get hung up on that, especially after you've been so many years having bosses give you direction and jobs and all of that kind of stuff, to be able to step out in confidence. The way I talk to people about it is, let the market tell you. Okay. So if there's people that are out there who need what you want to provide, even if you don't know how to talk about it yet, go out there and start doing it, and talk to the people that you think would get value from it, and they'll tell you whether it's right or wrong or different or whatever, and they'll introduce you maybe to other people, and you're going to have to change your approach 15 times. That's fine. That's part of the joy, actually, of being your own boss, is that you can get up in the morning and say, I'm going to change direction today, and actually be able to do it. By the way, this is one of the big reasons why you can compete the heck out of larger companies, because they have these big, slow, ponderous processes, and you can run circles around them because of how fast you can respond to what the market is telling you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Carl, because that's been the secret for us. That's the biggest lesson that we've learned, is that's almost the only thing we have to offer is speed. And
so don't be scared of the big guys.
Right.
All right. As a matter of fact, the big guys are doing you a service. They're educating the market, and they're showing the market what big and ponderous looks like. And so presumably then, when you offer something that is small and fast moving, if that's a value to the customers, then they're going to say, oh, when I compare it to those guys are slow and ponderous. I like the fact that you're fast and can move quickly. I'm going to go with you instead. Right.
We had a meeting a couple of months ago with a Fortune 500, Fortune 50 company, and I was meeting with the person who really had responsibility for a team that provides similar capabilities that we do. And so, her arms were very crossed, and she was kind of, I could tell she wasn't really open to the idea. And as we described our capabilities, she just was like, I have a team that has all those talents. I have all the technology that you're proposing. We already have all of that. So why would I need you? And I said, because the thing that takes you a year to do, we can do in 30 days. And that was the moment when immediately it was kind of like, okay, you got me there. Like, yes, it is the speed. That's the advantage. And they became a customer of ours. And it was only because of speed. They had, like, for the people that we have, they had those same type of people, the technology, they had, similar technology. but they can't operate in days. They only know how to operate in months and quarters to get something done. So
yeah,
it's
and
huge.
you know, how common is this? The other thing that is fantastic about being on your own is that big company needs 1 million customers to survive. You need 10. You know, it's a radically different scale. And so your job is to go out and find the 10 customers, or 50 or 100, you know, depending on what you're doing, that really, really need the uniqueness you bring to it. And then the entire rest of the market, let the big guys go and do it. That's fine. You know, you can't handle them anyway. Now, you have ambitions to grow to a large company, great. You know, I support that. But realize it's going to take time. You know, you're not going to get to 1 million customers in year 2. So anyway, a couple of other things I wanted to point out, because we're getting a little bit short on time here. One is, when you move into being your own boss, you're wearing all the hats. So that means that you're going to be learning stuff that you used to think was not your job. Things like, you know, managing yeah, right, taking out the trash. But, you know, the harder stuff like financial management. Okay, a lot of people really struggle with that, but you've got to at least be conversant enough that you can manage your business. Okay, so maybe you were able to go out and have an accountant do part of it for you. Fantastic. But, you know, that you'd really need to have your mind wrapped around that. You're going to be the chief salesperson. You're going to be the marketing designer. You're going to design your products and services and change them. You're the person who has to fix things when they screw up. So,
and that's all before 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, right. Okay. And when you look at it from a learning lens, it's fantastic, because you're learning tons of stuff much faster than you would have in a corporate job. All right. But let's be honest, it can be tiring, and it gets you into places that you're not comfortable. You know, I'm sort of an introvert by nature. And so going out there and being the salesperson for my own services, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. That's a little bit challenging for me, but I've had to go out and do it. The good news is that almost anything is learnable given enough practice. So if you want to put your mind to it, and go for it. Another thing is time management. And I know that all of us struggle with this. You struggle with it in your job environment. You're balancing work life and all this kind of stuff. And the whole idea that you can work whenever you want to, and you can work in your pajamas from your own home. It's, you know, that may all be true, but the fact is that you need to still be thinking of this as your full-time gig to go and build your business. And so, you know, if you define full-time as 40 hours a week, or, you know, 30 or 60 or whatever, you've got to be spending all that time going out there, defining your products, marketing the heck out of them, delivering it to your customers, doing sales engagements, you know, all of this stuff. And it takes a lot of fairly serious time management to make sure that you don't drop the balls on things. So, you know, I've got lots of action item lists, and, you know, I've reached a point where I can kind of predict a little bit more how the day is going to flow. But I tell you, there's just so much randomness that happens during the day of people, you know, calling up and saying, hey, can we change that appointment to next week? I was busy. It's like, well, okay, you know. And so the whole idea of time management is a very fluid thing, but it's something that you've got to kind of seriously consider and develop the techniques that work for you.
You know, I agree with all of that. The time management is a huge challenge. And part of that, a slice of that, is the freedom that you have. You know, I mean, managing my time is a major challenge, but managing my freedom is as well. The fact that I actually can decide to take an afternoon off and then, you know, make it up on the other end, or not even make it up, you know, I have all that available to me, and that requires some new discipline that maybe I relied on, the pressure of somebody expecting me to be there before. There's nobody like that anymore, unless I have a client scheduled.
If you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, that they'll say that one of the traps is definitely you're absolutely free to work 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so you have to back off of that too, is say, no. I need to have some sanity in my life. I need to spend time doing other things. I need to take time on the weekends. So in my business, I have freedom to do my stuff on the weekends and the evenings, should I choose to. I don't have small kids anymore. Don't have to worry about that. So that's great. But the danger is that, I can get sucked into it for 100 hours a week if I don't watch out. So, I have to define what freedom means for me as well.
Stefan in Sweden has a comment that the dream is to have the job I don't have to take a vacation from. It's true. I feel like I have that. I take vacations all the time with my family, so I now have all the vacation time I want. Nobody's telling me how many weeks I have per year. I can take all the time I want, but I find myself still working a lot on those vacations, and occasionally, not so much anymore, but I used to feel guilty that I should be home developing business. I can't take this time off. But I've evolved in the 4 years that I've been doing this business, and I'm much more comfortable with, I can take a vacation anytime I want. And they can be mini vacations, like for a half a day, or they can be a week long.
Yeah, and who was it that said that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life? And there's a lot of truth to that. So I firmly believe that driving things off of your passion and really getting in there is great. And guess what? After a while, you stop counting the hours and the minutes because you're actually enjoying the work that you do. Not necessarily all of it. There's parts of it that you don't like. That's fine. There's a lot of parts of the rest of your life that you don't necessarily like all of it. I don't like cleaning bathrooms, but it needs to be done. Okay.
Yeah, Carl, you're talking about time management. I think one aspect of time management that has been something that I've just tweaked recently because I was struggling with it was, when you have so many hats, deadlines can be something that can help you focus and really, get really focused. But when you are the owner of the business, you only have to negotiate with yourself for the deadlines. And so suddenly that focus, you don't get the benefit of focus if you can just tell yourself, okay, let's just move the deadline out. We'll just push it out another week and push it out another week. And so one of the things that I've just recently realized is having mastermind group or some kind of external accountability with other business owners is a really powerful way to sort of put in those deadlines and be accountable to someone other than yourself for making sure that you meet them.
Yeah, and that's a joyous thing too. The other nice thing about masterminds, which is why I'm starting up some new mastermind groups in 2016, is because people who are out doing the solopreneur thing often feel kind of lonely. Am I the only one that hasn't figured this out? And I don't want to show weakness in front of my family and my customers and my partners. Who can I show weakness to? And that's where things like, working with a coach or having a mastermind group or support systems like this, even somebody that, you work with as a mentor and meet up for beer every other week or something like that, can be a fantastic way to get that kind of momentum built. So it looks like, Billy Bob, you flaked out on us again, but that's okay. It was great having you on the line. I had one other thing I just wanted to really close with here. When you're looking to escape corporate and maybe go off and do your own thing, whatever that might look like, you really have to think through, am I running away from something or am I running towards something? Okay, because many times it starts with running away. I hate my job. I hate my boss. My career is going nowhere. I'm tired of it. but that's all running away from your current situation. It has to develop into what am I running toward, because that's where you have direction. Running away doesn't provide direction at all. It's just like away. That's all the direction you have. So it doesn't really help to make any decisions. And so working on what is it that I'm going towards? What do I want to do with the rest of my life?
I actually believe if you are running away, then some of the things that you're running away from will probably follow you. And I say this, I guess, from a leadership perspective, that if you're running away from an unhappy experience, it's kind of the core of the corporate life is hell message that we've been talking about. If my situation feels like hell, and I think it's all external to me, it's all the circumstances, it's my boss's fault, it's the bad leaders and all that, then I can't really do anything about it. But if I take ownership for my own experience, then I can change it. And so if I haven't made that switch and I run away from the corporate world, there's going to be new things out on my own that are going to make my life hell. So always be, yes, there are situations to run away from. Absolutely. I wouldn't stay with an abusive boss or a bad boss anymore. I'm done with that. But at the same time, always be, to your point, know what you're going to. Let something pull you versus trying to run away from something.
Yeah, and often it does start with running away, and that's fine. I mean, you're right. If you've got an untenable situation, then maybe running away is the right thing to do. So I don't have a problem with that. But if you want to actually accomplish something, you have to define, what does accomplish mean in my mind? Is it giving back to humanity? Is it developing myself professionally? Is it delivering value to customers that somebody will pay me for? What is it that really sustains me? And that you can build a direction upon, whether it's a business or through your social and volunteer work or whatever it is. That helps to provide direction. And sometimes I've seen people find out that their day job becomes more tolerable when they have a powerful direction for their personal time. And it's like, oh, okay, now it's not just go home and veg out in front of the TV and feel whipped. Now I'm doing something really valuable. The day job, it provides an income. That's fine. And yeah, boss is annoying, but they're just blathering on, and I'm not going to take it too seriously because now my value is not tied up primarily with what my boss thinks about me.
Yeah, I think that is true for a lot of people. Unless your day job gets threatened by your venture.
Yeah, well, right. We've only got 168 hours in a week, right? This is what we're all given.
Yeah. I'm not sure I totally understand what that means, Kat, but I guess it could be that your attention is going more and more to the new venture, and you start to not give your best to your current job, and it starts to have an impact, and then that has an effect on you in that job. I assume that's what it means. And yeah, that's true. I think that's probably the dynamic tension that happens for people who do two at once, like you're doing, Kat, that can, get you to a point where you say, okay, now I'm getting to that point where it might be time to do this full time. And as an entrepreneur, you have no choice.
Well, you have some choice, right?
Yeah.
Because
I was reading what Kat said and then letting it
right. No, I'm responding to that as well. Kat, you have the choice about how you want to maintain the kind of balance given the constraints that you're within. You've got limited time, you've got limited resources. That's all fine, but we all do. So, you get to choose. And the nice thing is, on your entrepreneurial venture, you get to change that. So you get to decide, okay, I can upscale it, I can downscale it, I can take it in a different direction. Okay, that's your choice. You don't necessarily want to be changing it too much because it takes time to develop. And so that's always the entrepreneurial challenge as well. I know people that are chasing rabbits all the time, and there's another bright, shiny object over there in the corner. Let me go throw some time and money at that. Well, recognize that the likelihood of that turning into something is pretty low. So if it's fun, if you're doing it as a hobby and as a personal interest, great, go have fun. But if you're trying to make a business venture out of it, we've got to be thinking years. You'd like to see some success happen in the first year, but to fully make up an income for yourself, it usually takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to make a comment on the choice thing because it's rolling around in my head a little bit. It is very true that often there are circumstances that you have no control over. The world is full of things that I don't control. In fact, most of it.
Yeah.
Most of it outside of my own body, there are things that I don't control.
Well, and there's 7 billion people out there that aren't paying attention to you.
That's right. That's right. So that is always true. And yet I would make the argument that I always have choice available to me. I might not be able to control what those choices are or what options are available within those choices, but I try to live my life now recently, in the last several years, I've come to understand this more. And I think I help clients get to this point too, that you always have choice available to you, and so being conscious of what choices you're making and how you're making them is the name of the game. That's the way we, I think, create our world.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, this has been an awesome discussion today. And it was great having you on the line here, Mike. And I'm glad we had Billy Bob check in for a little bit. Everybody who has participated in the chat session over on the side, thank you so much. This has been great. Really gave us some good ideas and meaty application of this. So we do have our next session scheduled for December 16th, same time. So we'll be setting that up shortly, right, Mike?
We will. The show is Corporate Life is Hell. We had a guest in 2 weeks, the author of the book Ripple. His name is Chris Hutchinson. Chris just recently had to change dates, so he'll be with us on January 6th. So we're actually looking for a guest for next week. If anybody has any ideas or wants to be a guest with us, let us know. But yes, we'll be on the air again in 2 weeks from today. Third Wednesday, or that'll be the third Wednesday in December at 12 noon U.S. Eastern Time.
Yep, fantastic. So thanks everybody who joined. Appreciate it, and we will talk to you in a couple of weeks. And remember, corporate life doesn't have to be hell. There is great life out there.
You have power.
There we go. Take care.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, everybody.
All right. We'll see y'all. Bye-bye.